Antti Pitkänen is a design management professional with over 10 years of experience in various positions, including designer, researcher, entrepreneur, lecturer, project manager, and the founder and managing director of Seos Design, a design and research agency based in Finland. His approach to design management is methodological, process-oriented, business-centered, and collaborative. On a personal level, Antti is a Finn with a Spanish twist, who enjoys combining the best of different cultures.
That was a very good and powerful introduction. My name is indeed Antti Pitkänen, and I'm really excited to be here today. Actually, this is my second time in the Design Week here in Rovaniemi. Came here a couple of years ago when it was still held at the university. Today we're going to be talking about design. You're going to be hearing a lot of very interesting keynote speakers speaking from different perspectives about design, how to benefit from design, and how it can be used. And I'm going to be talking about a research project. I'm going to be talking about design, but within the context of measurability. Can we actually quantify, understand what design is somehow more than just aesthetics and personal values? The introduction was very good, and I'm not going to go too much into my professional background, but I've been working for around 10 years now in different functions within the design industry. Perhaps kind of two main tracks that I've been really interested in is actual practical design work. So I do practice design as well, apart from speak about design. And especially within that field, in experiential spaces, intelligent spaces, interaction within space. Another side track that I'm quite passionate about is design in business. How design is organized within companies as methodologies, tools, ways of doing design. This is actually something that quite often I get intervened, or I interact with business owners, different kinds of managers within organizations, trying to really comprehend what design can do for them. On a practical side, I run an agency called Seos Design. Seos is a design and research agency based at the Aalto Design Factory in Espoo. And what we do quite often is collaborate with others. We collaborate both on the academic side as well as on the business side. And we find quite a lot of energy with working with people from different kinds of disciplines and expertise. And actually now that we're here, I would actually want to interact with you as well. A quick question. We're talking about research today, so a quick survey on where you come from. I would like the audience feel that they belong to the academic side. So university students, researchers, professors to raise up their hand. Okay, we have maybe 1/3, 2/3 or so. And business. And there's the missing third. Very good. What about both? Good. Now we had a little bit of exercise as well in the beginning, so that's good. So what I'm going to be talking about is Design ROI research project and things that we found out during the process. Design ROI or Design ROI project was a project set out to develop a methodology and tool to measure the economic impact that design has. So okay, there's a couple of different notions there. There is to develop something. So we're not talking about a common research project trying to find out facts and trying to reflect on those, but actually develop something. Then we have the economic impact. So how do we quantify the economic impact of design? Through this project, and quite a lot of the findings and quite a lot of the process was very design-led, which also influenced the results of the project. And it's been a very interesting journey that we had so far. The project already started in 2010 when we started preparing for the project, carried on for 2011 and 12. 2012, as you know, was the World Design Capital year in the capital region as well as over here. And also since then we've been doing quite a lot of promotion work, and this kind of speaking to different kinds of audience, both in the university side as well as then on the business side. And it's been quite an interesting journey. A little bit about the people who were involved in this project. So we had a very competent, hand-picked team from different areas, from business, technology, design, trying to figure out this subject. Design ROI, design value, design effectiveness is somewhat of a hot potato at the moment within the design management field, at least. Everybody's trying to unravel and understand better that design, how design is turned into actual good results. Good design is good business. Just an article released last week made quite a lot of impact on the social media, and it's actually true. And what is the reason why we research in this subject? Paul Lil-Rank, who's a professor at the Aalto School of Technology, has been quoted to have said this: that what I cannot measure, I cannot manage. And it also goes with design quite well. We need to be able to understand what affects it, what are the realities within design, in what kind of context design works at its best and yields the best results. And this applies to any area of business, but so it does to design as well. And I mentioned before that the project was very design-led. And what does it mean? It means that during the process we worked with a lot of design agencies, trying to activate them to contribute their knowledge, their expertise, their know-how into the process. It was very iterative as well. It was something that we worked on over and over again, trying to actually get to the basics of what we're doing and then build up from there. And what we were interested in was not so much maybe the national level or international level, the macroeconomic side. So how does design act as an instigator for innovation or growth in GDP? We have quite a lot of research. We have some representatives from Dekes here today as well. They'll be able to speak quite a lot of why they're investing or why they're promoting design. But what we were interested about was individual companies doing individual projects. How can we measure the impact of those design-led projects? Okay, you're not going to be able to read that out, so I'm going to point out a few interesting facts from there. This is a chart that compares on a national scale. So now let's look at the big picture first. It compares national competitiveness against design competitiveness of countries. And on the right-hand corner, I don't know if I'm going to be able to show a flash, but right up corner we have countries like Switzerland, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, that are in the top 10 of those countries. Companies that are doing very well on national competitiveness in terms of business, but also doing very well in terms of design awards, design prizes, and so forth. And you can see a pattern rising there. This is on national, international scale, looking at countries, how they actually compare. So that's the big picture. But during the process, we also try to understand why companies are investing or are not investing in design. Together with the Suomalaisen Työnliitto, Finnish Association for Work, we did a survey of some 1,500 Finnish companies, from SMEs to large corporations, trying to understand, are they investing in design? Are they not investing in design? Why they are not investing in design? And this is actually quite interesting finding from that was that we are doing well without design. Business goes as usual. We haven't been using design. We're doing quite well without that. So please leave us alone. It's not something that concerns us. And also when they were saying it's not relevant to them, it's because they found that it's not relevant to their industry. According to Design Forum Finland, maybe some 50 to 60% of Finnish companies are not using or are not conscious of using design services. That means that great opportunities for us, design agencies, but also all of all the experts within design field to be taking design into a lot of different organizations. And it's very much about communication. This is an image that we used all throughout the project and trying to understand what are we actually doing. It's about creating dialogue. On the left-hand side, we have the client organization. And if we think it about as a classical pyramid, you have the top management, middle management, and then you have the employees doing the work. And when you actually approach the client companies, you need to be able to talk with a lot of different people. You need to be able to understand the daily routines, the daily things that affect the decision before the project has a go-ahead. The middle management is trying to fight for their projects. They're trying to create a project pool. They're trying to understand how they could actually do their work better. So how can we as design agencies give them tools to do that work better? On the other hand, the top management is trying to convince the board that they're doing a good job as well. And they're trying to calculate which would be the best track to take in the future on a strategic level, on looking on where the company should take. So we need to be able to convince them as well that design is good business. On the other side, design agencies, we're trying to survive on these interesting times, and we're trying to bring in those projects. We're trying to convince them, the clients, that they should be investing in design and investing especially with them. So how can we create a two-way communication in between client, that is design buying organizations, and the design agencies, design supplying parties? Great, I'm not going to ask you to read that either, that gets a bit mixed up the text. But it actually, talking about this communication, and we did quite a lot of reviewing and trying to understand how are we selling design as agencies to our clients. We analyzed, there was an image in between, there was some 15 design agencies involved in the project, so we had quite a good spread of different types of design agencies from the Finnish sector. We try to understand how do they communicate through their websites, how do they communicate through their speeches, what are the services that they're offering. Here's a list of some 15 different services that design agencies are offering or were offering at the time of the research project. And what we actually see is that when we speak about design anyways, we're trying to find out the meaning, we're trying to really understand all the kind of little textures that it has, all the kind of different methodologies, tools, and so forth, and communicate them to the clients. But what we see also, some of the design professionals are talking about design in a certain way, others are in a completely different way. And what we see is that we're talking at the same time so much about model making as it can be about strategic design, about service design, and digital design. And if you are coming from the outside and now reflecting back on the results that we were getting from the research that we did, is that perhaps our clients are not fully understanding what design is, what it can do, what are the steps, and what are they actually paying for when they get on the project. And we were actually asked in the beginning of the project, we were asked not to try and redefine design once again. Because every single design-related research project somewhat defines it with new terms and so forth. But we actually came to the solution that we had to do so. We had to try and understand somehow, simplify that picture. So we made this assumption, or looking at the data that we collected, that design can actually be used to develop 4 different areas. The classic way of thinking of design being used for product design, depending on which point of view you're looking at it from, brand, service, and space. Within product, we have the investment goods, we have the fast-moving consumer goods, or consumer goods in general. On brand, we have the corporate level and the kind of product level branding. Service, we have the service specific to a certain context, directed to the clients, or then within organizations. And with space, we have all that brand-related space, as well as the kind of housing and kind of lifestyle-led spatial design. So 4 areas, and somehow when we've been going through this with different kinds of environments where people necessarily haven't been accustomed to hear about design that much, this is already quite an important step for them to take. Design is more than the classic vase, or it's more than brand, or is it more than the kind of preconceived idea that they might have of design. Another important step, this is a modified image from the Danish Design Center's design ladder or design maturity model, where it actually kind of reflects on how is design being used. What are the different levels of design usage? Is it something, does it actually exist within companies? So if we start from the bottom, state 0, evaluating a company's design maturity, you have a company that's not using design, doesn't understand design, is not actually, is not aware of using design. Stage 1 is where design is used as styling exercise, or maybe reflecting on some technical components. So something that is brought in at a very late stage of the design process. Colors, materials, textures, so forth. But very kind of superficial, but yet still important part of design process. Design as a process, and now this is what we're discussing here today as well. Design as something that can be done over and over again in the same way, can be developed, can be simplified, can be communicated to the rest of the organization, can be measured to a certain extent. And then design as a strategy, so design as something that actually shows direction. And in the recent years, we are seeing that companies are rising up this ladder, and they're actually making more use of design more broadly in different parts of the organization, which is a very good news for us. So it's a very good time to be in the design business as such. So what we're actually discussing when we're talking about measurability of design, we're talking about going from qualitative, personal, subjective evaluation of design, going towards a quantitative evaluation of design, so looking at numbers, percentages, increases in user satisfaction, and how does that translate into financial terms? Euros, dollars, more sales, etc. So very much within a research project, and now you have to I explained before that we had some 15 design agencies. This means 15 competing client organizations as clients for one company. This, for a research project, makes it somewhat a difficult or challenging task to find something that actually is beneficial for everybody. So, but you need to be able to focus and find the right way in the project all throughout, and keep your head cool in a way. What's the financial impact then of design? And I'm not going to have to stand here, but the Swedish design promotion organization, SVID, found out in their research in 2008 that they've been carrying ever since that it increases productivity or profitability by 50%, using design as a strategic tool within the organization. The British Design Council have found that actually the return on investment on design is some £225 to every £100 invested. That's a very good result. That's financial terms. A similar kind of research project done in the west coast of the US, where they looked at the Idea Award companies that have succeeded well in this kind of competitions. They had a €6.5 higher share price than the other companies. The Danish Design Center, and this is quite an interesting fact. They actually looked at the companies, they were doing 22% better than the companies that weren't using design, and if design as such was something that they were doing constantly. So it wasn't something that that the companies were using every 10 years when a new product launch was, but actually developing as a competence making it attribute to a lot of different kinds of projects, different kinds of activities that the companies are running, that they reach up to 44%. And actually, I was in London last week. There was two very interesting events. One was leading Business by Design event, also by Design Council, and the Design Effectiveness Awards held there. And the numbers there were quite interesting. Some of the winners from Design Effectiveness Awards were reaching up to 6,000% increase in sales due to a clever use of design within the process. Design Management Institute, they have a program running now, it's called Design Value. They were actually able to find that companies that were heavily design intensive, companies that were actually using design in multiple levels of those steps, they were actually performing by 228% against their competitors. Okay, for me, I'm a designer as well. Numbers start becoming quite abstract after a while, but actually they're quite a good way of communicating the value of design. And what's great about it is that we are actually starting to talk about the numbers behind the design process and the results. So we have the numbers, we have the results. We are seeing that companies, design promotion agencies, they are able to communicate these values. On the previous thought or quote, I'm going to quote now Richard Feynman, a 19th century physicist. Tested a lot of things, and he said that if you can't, what you cannot create, you cannot understand. And it actually makes quite a lot of sense. We need to be able to chop down those results, those ways of finding out the kind of and investigate the truth in order to be able to understand it better. And this is exactly what we did within this project. Through this iterative way of working, through interviewing a lot of experts from different fields, we actually managed to pick up some of the pieces that weren't perhaps so much publicly being announced. We looked at those 4 areas of design, built up understanding of what the processes are behind those, looked at those different levels. Now this is a simplified version of the design ladder model. As we were interested in organizations, we went into looking at what are the benefits of design on an operative level. So when doing design as a styling exercise, on a tactical level, looking at those processes behind design and how design is being organized, and how they're being used as a strategic level, as a direction tool. And what is the exact link from those into cash flow? So faster cash flow, that means money coming in quicker. Being in a company, running a company is actually quite nice when the client's paying time. And you kind of appreciate that. That's good for the cash flow, the money coming in quicker so you can pay for other things that you need to be spending on. Greater cash flow, more money coming in, less cost, and accumulation of capital. So accumulation of intangible capital. That means some value that doesn't show necessarily today or tomorrow, but something that ends up adding up over time. Brand value, recognition, differentiation, things that actually make us recognize how projects look like, how they look from a certain company, what is the DNA of that product, that company, that company's way of doing things. And from that, we made the hypothesis. And this has been quite an interesting oversimplification of the whole process. But what's been important there, so a couple of key learnings from speaking with companies is that they understand design as a beneficial activity to improve products, as well as services, as well as brand, as well as spatial solutions. That design can be used at different levels, and that it yields some positive financial impact. And somewhat what we've seen, or the feedback that we've got, is that simplification is a good tool, and it's a very design-oriented tool as well. So we try and simplify, try to comprehend our environment, and so we can do also with financial models. Based on this, we then started doing what would be the logic? What would be the logic behind creating a methodology on tool for measuring the impact of design? First, we need to understand the case-specific information. So what are we trying to achieve with this project? In what industry does it work, etc. Doing the background calculation, understanding how does it actually work out? What do the numbers say? Doing a forecast. Forecast means trying to project what's going to happen after we launch this project. Is it going to look up, down? Investment is a risky business always, so is investment in design as well. But how can we limit that risk somehow? Monitoring, how does that investment develop over time? And how can we move all that specific case examples from different industries, even from competing companies, into a database so that we can actually reflect in between those different kinds of projects and then gain more information. So this kind of cyclical idea is very important within developing this tool or methodology. Return on investment. How many of you had heard of return on investment as a term before? Okay, most. It's quite easily calculated by understanding what is the gain achieved by something. So what has it brought back and how much have we invested in that multiplied by 100? That would be the very simple way of calculating return on investment. But obviously, world is not as easy as that. And what we use is a net present value calculation, trying to understand how does time affect the investment? If you want to have a good return on your investment, you would, again, want to have it earlier than later. But it also develops over time. So we need to take that into consideration. And also what we need to take into consideration, what is the opportunity cost of the capital? Now this is a little bit more complicated. If I'm investing on this, that means I can invest somewhere else. So it's a decision that companies make. Quite often we are competing within the design industry with the marketing, with the engineering, with the R&D, or we can also look at it as a collaboration activity, and usually it's that as well. And what the tool actually, what we did, how to create the prototype, and again I explained before that it was a very design-led research project, so we tried to come up with some practical solution, something that we could test, something that we could understand a little bit better. We built up from all the scientific and academic research and business research that we did, tried to understand what are the influencing factors. So how to build up the case-specific information. What effects there are industries, the type of, or the size of the companies, trying to understand what are the objectives of the project, from anywhere from brand value creation to employee satisfaction increase. And what we also find within kind of doing any kind of measurement, the objectives of the measurement are very important. So what you get is what you measure, also applies to this. If you set out a project to increase brand recognition, you're bound to get that. So it's in certain types of activities it's crucial, in some it's not, and it's important to prioritize on those. Doing the background calculation, doing in a kind of quite obvious way that we can actually understand, in a visual way that we can actually understand the numbers, and it sufficiently transparent that it can be compared with others. Setting the objectives and marking those, understanding how they actually, which ones influence more. And this is very much about the company-specific information. We quite often work with specialists from different organizations that have a lot of experience within the company in understanding what are the influencing factors within that industry, within their work. So really kind of building on that. Doing the forecast, and again, what I explained was even just the simplified graph is a very efficient tool to understand what would be the most optimistic case. Design, again, research, risk investment, or any investment carries its own risk and its own opportunities. It's understanding what are the opportunities, what are the risks, and what happens if we go as business as usual. Let's say the same way we've been doing the whole last 20 years with the same products, what happens to our business? And how then to do the evaluation and collecting that information. And this is actually going to these different design events, something quite important. Companies, countries, design promotion agencies, they are developing this knowledge, but they're not willing to share that. They're not willing to share the logic that's happening behind, or they're not wanting to give out that gain of opportunity that they have or gain knowledge. Which has also led that this project caused, to our surprise, quite a lot of interest, both in Finland, but especially outside of Finland. We realized that we couldn't just show graphs and do PowerPoint presentations, but we actually had to also put it into a written format, something that would actually help us communicate what we were working for a year to a wider audience. By the way, I have some copies of these, or there's also some material on the new book that's going to be launched today about the project. But we wrote a whole lot of different articles. The original report was published in Finnish. We thought that it would be very important to have material in Finnish for the Finnish audience, clarifying some of the terms behind design in Finnish, because we quite often loan, borrow, steal from other languages to explain what design is. But what we did was we put it online, and we actually started looking at, so what are the numbers behind the reads that we're getting? And what was quite funny about that was that over 60% of the reads were coming from outside, and they were coming through Google Translate. I don't know, have you used Google Translate, but this kind of material translated through that, it becomes quite a fantasy novel rather than what it really stands for. So Design Forum Finland took lead and translated this report into English now as well, which has opened us quite a lot of doors. It has been a good, efficient communication tool. It has also meant that the spread out of this project has been much bigger now. This is from an average from a couple of months. We've going around 4,000 reads, some 26,000 clicks, which means that somebody's opened the report some 26,000 times. People are spending some 7 minutes. And these are actually numbers that actually make us understand a little bit better, is this information valid? Is it interesting? We're getting quite a lot of shares. We're getting quite a lot of invites to different kinds of events. So only within the last half a year or so, we've been speaking at numerous international conferences on the subject. So if we talk about what's the return on investment on the design ROI project, this is something how we can quantify that. And another thing has been speaking at these kinds of events. So very much about the interaction, about speaking to each other, trying to understand better, and what the main issues there are. And there's been some very good key learnings from the discussions that have happened after the project. So now we need to remember that this project was only 1 year long, but has been carrying out the promotion work for another year since then. And what's been good was trying to understand a little bit about the company needs. This was very much design agency-led, so design agencies trying to comprehend the business value that they're creating, but also look at it from the client side. What are their issues? And what we're finding there is that companies are finding, if we think that evaluations like this can be done before starting a project, during a project is running, or after the project has been finished, we're finding that quite a lot of the companies are already struggling somewhat within the before phase. So building the business case for a design project. We are now building up actually a Design ROI 2.0 project. So a project where we'll be working together with Finnish companies, trying to understand their daily activities, their way of understanding their KPIs, key performance indicators, their way of measuring the result of their activities. And very much how can we build a sufficiently good tool base of knowledge for these organizations. There's quite a lot of interesting material within this, but again, what I would hope is that if you have any questions at this point in time, you can ask them to me directly, or you can contact me via email, or I don't know how much time we have left, but Julius hasn't shown 1 minute. Okay, we have time for 1 minute. One question. Any brave ones? Too early in the morning. Good. Good. I hope it's a tough one that I can answer with my design perspective.
It's a very positive question. What is the next thing? What is Design ROI 2.0? What is the next thing that you will do? Will it be an application that we can download, or is there some kind of this kind of concrete thing that we could do as designers to benefit somehow very practical level from the report?
Design ROI 2.0 is still in the process. That's a very, very good question, and we're trying to understand it at the moment as well. It's a project that will be starting sometime during this year. We are actually, the reason why we're in London last week, we were looking for the international partners. I think the discussion within the design ROI or design value is very active at the moment. Within different fields, we're trying to pull them into Finland and give their understanding as well. But it's very much going to be about collaboration within different parties, both design agencies, we don't want to forget those, but also the design buying companies. So very much talking with them to kind of take it into one step further into practical level. But also what's very important about here, and I've received many contacts from banks to big food chains to big business owners that I want this tool. And we say, look, it's a first prototype, it's not working perfectly, it's even though it's visualized there's still quite a lot of work to be done in validating it. So we realized that we were planning to take a very big leap, and we took a very confident first step to discover the subject. But yes, it's a work in progress. Hope I answered your question. One question, yeah?
Thank you. I think that it is a very good start, so to begin to understand business and design each other. And I think that also because I heard you to talk a lot about it was design intensive, it was design led. So perhaps to think about talking like business intensive design, then to turn it around also when you go further.
That's a very good comment, and what we're actually seeing within the design field and the discussions that we've been having is that companies are understanding the value of design. Companies are actually taking those design tools that work very well in developing new products or services or so, and taking them into developing the whole business. And I don't know if you heard that, it was a comment that there's still a lot of work to do within the design field or within companies that do not understand design. And very much about that design maturity model or design ladder is very much about trying to understand at what stage companies are at. Great. Any other questions?
Hello. Good morning, everyone.
One question. Yeah.
What does it mean for our business when everybody is using these kind of tools?
Very good question. So it would mean, let's take it 10 years in the future when everybody's using design ROI calculation and the economic evaluation of design processes. It would mean that we would be able to understand better the results of design. I think that goes without saying. But it would mean also that companies are able to do better and wiser decisions on where to invest their money, how to invest in design, and what's the actual process on how it starts yielding results to them. It would also mean that we have more tools to do design promotion work, but also do the kind of more intelligent use of design as such.
Thank you.
Did that answer the question?
The world is designed.
Sorry?
World is designed.
Yes. Well, you can always design more. Great. Thank you.